So this is the early roots of all this kind of stuff comes from, as you see it, the Socratic method towards knowledge and the doubt that it kind of engenders. And this was something that really Gellner was very intrigued by and interested in, because he did say that one of the problems with the Anglosphere's ideology, if you like, was that it was kind of weak. It didn't have, it couldn't bind itself together with a big kind of truth or a big sense of certainty, which a religious ideology or a Marxism could do. All he saw it as is you could just hold it together with. It worked. You got fridges and cars more than elsewhere, but that was about it. So do you want to talk a little bit about this, the early roots of this problem of modernity?
Thank you. I'd like to do that. I'd like to start, though, just as you mentioned, I am deeply influenced by poetry, and you've been reading poetry. So I'd like to start with a bit of poetry, which is dedicated to the people of Afghanistan, because today,
yes,
Kabul is falling. And it shows that this problem of fragmentation and loss of certainty is not only very ancient, but also very strong throughout European history. And this is taken 100 years ago, a very famous passage, but captures it. It's Yeats's The Second Coming. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. He could have been foretelling what's happening there and in many parts of the world, but the best lack all conviction, that is really the theme of what I want to talk about, and the absence of certainty. And as you mentioned, this has very deep roots in Greek thought, where the Socratic method suggests that there is no particular truth. You should search further and further, and as soon as you've established one sort of truth, you then question it and look. So it's a questioning sort of open philosophy, and it goes back 2,500–3,000 years ago. It's then reinforced by later things. One of them that's always struck me is the legal tradition in Western Europe, because many civilizations really don't have a strong legal presence. India, China, Japan, they really don't have much in the way of law. Most things are resolved by the family or communities. We have this very strong legal tradition going back, again, certainly to the Romans and before, but it takes a particular strength and direction in the medieval period, and particularly in England, because the whole legal system of England, the common law system of England, which is one of the strong roots of modernity, is one where you don't have established truth, but you have the searching for truth. So English courts, particularly criminal courts and civil courts, are based on arguing about truth. You have different versions, you have confrontations, you have contradictions, you have one set of lawyers arguing one thing. And so this tradition, which was behind much of English life for centuries, is also deeply present in the educational system, particularly university educational system. Law and the training of lawyers was one of the main functions of the early universities, not only in England, but in France and elsewhere. And so one of the 4 or 5 main subjects any student coming to Cambridge would have done from 800 years ago was law, and they would have been trained to argue. And that sense of arguing with other people is then built into the whole teaching system, where your tutor and you argue about things. There are different versions, and you are told to pick and choose and argue for one and then argue for another. So when I taught my students, I said, it doesn't matter. You don't have to find the truth. What you have to do is tell a plausible, convincing story. So basically, the educational and legal system of the last 800 years, at least in Western Europe, has been very much one of contested truths. But there are many other strands. The Western civilization is a river into which many different rivers have poured over the last 2,000 years. And one of them is what we think of as modern, which is globalism.